Sorry, I'm on mute. We are live. We are live. Finally. Sorry, guys. Apologies for the delay. Obviously, I think Tom. I think you're updating your computer and I'll setting things up. But we are live. We are live. Hey, guys. It's Old Man G here, back again, starting the show. Really appreciate everyone who's watching. Obviously, we've got a good show for you tonight. Apologies about the delay again. We're just busy, and I think I said we had some technical issues behind the scenes. But thanks everyone for joining in. If you are new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter. We United. Smash the notification button. Plays Manchester United news and more. Tom, how are you doing, buddy? Thanks again for coming on again, buddy.
Yeah, no worries. And my apologies anyway to everybody in the chat and everything. It's not G's fault why we've gone a little bit late. He's had a couple of technical problems. I've had to update my computer and it's caused me to be a little bit late behind schedule, but we'll make up for it with a good quality show and we'll
what computer
give
do you have,
some
by the
good
way?
content.
Is it Mac PC or
I've got a MacBook. Yeah, I've had to update through the settings and everything and that, and it's been a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you.
Is it the new? Because I'm getting a prompt to update my Mac as well, but I've held off. I think it's like, is it Serena or something like that? But I've held off because I know that every time I update my Mac, it makes it slower and worse. So I've kind of just held off as long as I could. But
it makes it slower. But the updates I need just for some of the apps that I end up using. That's the only problem. And then when the computer doesn't update, then it makes, say, link, like for example, when we do say StreamYard or whatever, it doesn't make it as efficient, and then it cuts out or disconnects. So it's just better to do it that way, I guess. But yeah, we'll make up for it, everybody, anyway.
Cool. Yep, no worries. I said thanks again for being on. Big up everyone in the chat. I see Ellis in the chat. Big up. Hope you're doing well, buddy. And obviously my good old Rob. Thank you very much as well. Thank you for doing well. Yeah. So obviously we have a good show. Obviously going to discuss Ten Hag and INEOS plans. Obviously some news coming out today regarding the fact that United may next week reveal the future of Ten Hag or after what's been forever. And then obviously talk about just some latest transfer news and development news and stuff like that. But like I said, if you're new to the channel, please obviously hit the like button, etc., etc., etc. So, and then obviously, if you have any questions for me, it is Friday night. I know it's a bit late. But if you have questions, get them in the comments, and we'll obviously try and address them and have a good show. But obviously, start things off. I guess the first thing is obviously we did a show earlier on this week. I think it was on Monday regarding about Ten Hag's future and the fact that they seem to be leaning more towards him being sacked after this performance review. What you've heard, Tom, has anything changed? Are we expected to hear more about Ten Hag's situation, this week or next? Like, what's the current vibe you're getting, Tom?
Well, the sort of position that INEOS have led is that they have made a thorough internal review into all the findings for the results of this season. Like we discussed on the last stream about regards to the injury problems that they've had throughout the season. There's an internal investigation as to how that's affected player performance. There's been a review of Erik ten Hag's coaching credentials. His whole coaching staff have been put in the firing line in terms of are they fit for purpose in terms of coaching at Manchester United? What is the identity that Manchester United have played for this season that Erik ten Hag has banged on about in terms of, this is the way that we want to play? They want answers to a lot of these questions, and they've led the review. So Dave Brosford has led a performance-related review. And as I said before, the acting CEO in Jean-Claude Blogs led a financial review of the whole football club. So they've done a whole review of every single operation, part of the football club, to say where this season has gone so wrong, albeit they left on a high in winning the FA Cup. In massive favour to Erik ten Hag, in the point towards Erik ten Hag, there's a massive sort of compassion around him to say that he has had injuries. He has had problems for the whole season. However, the one thing that Manchester United, that INEOS have looked at more related to it is that they look at the league and they look at the teams around them. Newcastle have had a lot of injuries this season and they've still managed to perform on the pitch. Chelsea to the discredit with Pochettino, or obviously with him being dismissed of his duties, had a lot of injuries to contain within the season, but he was getting results, and it picked up toward the end of the season. And it was only until the end part of the season that Manchester United really started to get any sort of form, but they only started to get any sort of form when there was nothing to play for. So it was almost inevitable that the players had to put something out there, because if there's nothing to play for, you might as well just play for yourself then. And effectively with INEOS and the review, they, as I said before, I'd spoken to a lot of different managers, different types of managers, profiles. But the one thing that INEOS have made very clear now is that they want to implement a possession-based style of football at Manchester United, whether that be similar to a tick-attacker or a more aggressive, hungry sort of style of football. They're like what Roberto De Zerbi coaches and Jurgen Klopp coaches in essence. They want a manager who will embody that vision and style of play and take that forward at Manchester United. And the one thing that they're reviewing is whether Erik ten Hag is fit for purpose to coach that way, first and foremost, whether he's prepared to coach that way, and then if he is he the right man for the future of the football club? And based upon the findings that INEOS have looked at, the final decision is expected to come for next week. As I said before, from my own personal perspective, I don't think he will be here, personally. I think when you've contacted the amount of managers that they have done, and the managers of elite, of proper pedigree, who've actually won big honours in the game, and maybe you could say have done more than what Erik ten Hag has done in this case at Manchester United or in his whole coaching career, when you contact those sort of managers in high level, that would, in essence, make it point more towards that you think that there's better value in the market. But the one thing that INEOS, I know for a fact anyway, that they won't do is, if they end up keeping Erik ten Hag, it's not much of a finder into saying that they fully believe in him. It's the fact of that they won't pull the trigger on Erik ten Hag unless they're guaranteed that they believe that there is a better option and a better solution out there in the market to go and get. And the running theory, and this is just a theory, this isn't completely concrete, is that INEOS have delayed a lot of this review based upon the fact of that they don't believe the manager that they want out in football is either currently unavailable or, based upon how long the review's taken to decide on the style of play, the manager that they want out there is, in the exact same hindsight with Erik ten Hag, is on holiday. Managers take breaks, they take rests away from football at the end of the season. It's normal. So this final decision on Erik ten Hag's future will probably come next week. So you will know what the future holds for Erik ten Hag. But the waiting piece is and the running theory behind the scenes is that the manager that they want out there, they can't currently convince to come to Manchester United. So inevitably, if they did get rid of Erik ten Hag next week, there wouldn't be a quick solution to get a manager in straight away. It will be a simple case of you will probably wait. You might know who the manager is, but there won't be any signing on or any press releases or press conferences until maybe even you could say start mid Euros, and then you'll know who the manager is by that point. But nothing will just be penned up and signed.
So given what you've just said there, Tom, does that mean that, because my understanding was that the likes of Tuchel, the likes of De Zerbi, etc., those and even Poch, those are managers who would chomp at the bit to get the Manchester United job. So, but if you're saying that the people that they've contacted are not interested in coming in yet, does it mean that United aren't sure of hiring the likes of those candidates, for example? I mean, Rob even adds some saying, says, also INEOS interested in Southgate and delay. Can you see this happening, guys, if they let Erik ten Hag go? So is Southgate also a factor as well, or?
No, when I look at it in terms of with some of the managers anyway, according to from what I know with some of the managers, Thomas Tuchel is actually on holiday with his family in Switzerland, as far as I'm aware. Roberto De Zerbi has gone back home to Italy. With I can't remember which with anyway. I think he's over there with his family as well and stuff. Taking a bit of a break away from football. Pochettino, I'll be very honest, I don't know his whereabouts or what he's up to or anything, but I'd probably expect the same thing. Listen, he's just come out of a job. He probably wants a bit of time to reflect, spend a bit of time with family, and reassess his options. And this is what managers do. And this is why, unless you are completely out of work and you don't have any job at all, that's why I don't see there being a quick resolution. I think the fact of that Zerbi's come out of a job just recently, he's going to want to spend a little bit of time with family, have a bit of a vacation, and then assess his options and come back to management. Pochettino will be the same. Thomas Tuchel's the same. All three of those managers that we've just mentioned there are the exact same solution. They're all on holiday. They all want a bit of a rest and time away from the game. So, and Erik ten Hag is no, discredited to that. He's on holiday as well. He's taking a break away from football. Whether he's going to come back and be a Man United manager or he's not, at the end of the day, managers will want a rest away from football. And to the second point, with what was it Rob that was saying about with Southgate? The thing especially with Gareth Southgate is these links aren't proven links based upon that. A lot of the British media have put two and two together to say, well, Gareth Southgate's got a good relationship with Sir Dave Brailsford, and he's got a good relationship with Dan Ashworth. Those 2 points don't mean that he's going to be Manchester United manager. As I said before, the way that INEOS look at it, they want a manager who is going to play a tick-tacker, aggressive style of football, possession-based football. That's what they thrive and want. And if anybody needs a lesson to look at how Gareth Southgate, his teams play, go and have a look at what he did with Middlesbrough. He got them relegated. And if anybody watched the England game tonight, you'll see that it's far, far away from what INEOS dream of playing. The one thing that you can say with Sir Jim Ratcliffe in particular is the way that they model this team and they want the team to play and function is very similar to how Manchester City's team play. Deconstruct teams, play fast-flowing football when you have fast transitions. Pep Guardiola's teams, when you look at the embrace that Sir Jim Ratcliffe gave to Pep Guardiola, that's a recognition to the guy. Because if Pep Guardiola was on the market in world football, INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe probably wouldn't think twice because that's the perfect manager who fits that style that they want. So all they have to do is just try and get a manager who mirror images that in football. And in the open market, there's many managers that can do that. But there's also managers who will come into the football club. If the club have a clear way of that they want to play, they'll adapt to play that way. And they will adapt the players to play that way. So when people say that Thomas Tuchel, he's renowned for his back three formations, absolutely, yeah. But if you bring Thomas Tuchel to Manchester United, they're bringing him in for a reason. And that reason is he understands that the club want to play a certain way. And the club understand that Thomas Tuchel's a credible candidate in the exactly same case that Pochettino probably would be. Or, when there was the rumours with Julian Nagelsmann a couple of weeks and months ago. So these managers and coaches, they can come into this football club because it's Manchester United. It's a once-in-a-lifetime job, as we said last stream. There's 3 clubs that in management in football that are very hard to turn down, regardless of if you will play that way that club believes in, the philosophy of the club, whatever. That's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Man United. And when those 3 clubs come knocking, you almost arch your head to think, well, it's worth a jump, it's worth a chance. It's a big football club. And you never know when it's going to be your last job in football. So for a lot of these managers, if it means coming to Manchester United and playing a certain way and coaching a way, that will be brilliant for some managers. Because some managers' best work is on a training pitch and not in a scouting briefing or in a recruitment team where they actually look and assess for players. That's some managers' cup of tea. Other managers talk with the boots on the ground, the tactical boards out, and say, this is how we're going to play for Saturday when we play Wolves or when we play, Newport County in the FA Cup. That's how some managers and coaches work. There's 2 different philosophies, but what INEOS in particular want is they want a coach. That's the one thing that I do know. They want a coach if they do replace Erik ten Hag.
Cool. Thank you for the update, Tom. Really appreciate it. And obviously, Rob says thanks. Thanks. Answered the question. Spot on. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'll obviously ask a few more questions just regarding about Ten Hag, and United's decision. So obviously, I got funny enough, I've been getting a lot of a bit of hate on Twitter for sort of not necessarily being as optimistic about INEOS as I think everybody else is, just because I'm waiting to kind of see what they do and judge them on that rather than necessarily just assume that everything is going to be fine this summer. Just with INEOS animation from Ten Hag, do you think that there's going to be enough time, given the fact that the Euro is going to be starting soon, that Nashville's not been secured, etc., etc. Are there concerns United camp that there's not really going to, and obviously financial constraints? Are there any concerns this summer that United aren't really going to be or do anything really significant in the summer transfer window because of it? If that makes any sense.
In terms of, say, the financial structure of the club?
It's more a combination of things, a combination of finances, lack of time, and also lack of structure or lack of personnel, because like I've done that, so your finances are hit, and obviously you've got the Euros coming up as well, so there is a lack of time. So are these factors things that could affect what United do going forward this summer?
I think in the short term, probably not, because I think the INEOS have almost got the perfect backup plan. They would ideally want Ashworth, Barada, Wilcox, Sir Dave, Jean-Claude Blanc. They'd want all these people in their desired roles, what they work and operate best in. But some of them are having to almost redirect. They're having to run a role that they've never done before, but they have experience in that area per se. But they're not a leading. They're not a. It's not their ideal job. It's not their ideal role. For example, Jason Wilcox, as a technical director, he's worked under that structure before. He's only briefly just worked as a director of football at Southampton, and you look at where Southampton have just gone from the Championship back to the Premiership. So in terms of recruitment of players in a market with a low budget cost, Jason Wilcox fits the bill to almost lead the recruitment team while they get Dan Ashworth in place and they get maybe a couple of other people in place that they want. Omar Barada is exactly the same thing. He can't start work until July. He can do bits and bobs in the background, as many people will expect him to do. Listen, you sign a contract, and I'm sure loads of people have signed something that they don't necessarily, agree to follow up on. It's like when you get an update or anything. Who sits there and reads it, a 30-page terms and conditions sheet? Not a lot of people read that nowadays, do they? So that's what I'm getting at. And in terms of the short term on the financial side, Jean-Claude Blanc is the interim CEO. He's worked at Juventus, where he helped them get the financing in place to build a new stadium. Exactly the same thing with PSG, where he was a general manager at PSG. He got brilliant sponsorships in place for them through putting Qatar Airways as the main legal sponsor, so that they could get more sponsorship into the football club at the time. He worked with a lot of big sports brands, Nike, Adidas, and the Jordan brand as well, which they ended up getting a higher bid from the Jordan brand to put them as the main kit sponsor for PSG anyway. So he's worked with big brands. He's got vast experience in that. So in the short term, I think Manchester United are actually a lot better than maybe people are not as optimistic for. Of course, everybody would want it to all be perfect and rosy, but nothing's ever going to be perfect and rosy in the first 5 minutes of it. There has to be a little bit of time and a bit of leeway there. But I think the way that INEOS are looking at it, the way that INEOS have looked at it, maybe if you look from the outside in, is that they're not going to be that pushover anymore. They look at Manchester United and they look at Manchester United in football and they say, when you walk in a room, you should pay £5-10 million more for a player, not 30. That's the way that INEOS look, and it is exactly what they're doing with Dan Ashworth, where the only compensation that I know of anywhere that Manchester United have offered Newcastle, they offered him a £4 million payout of his contract. Basically, just to say, if Dan Ashworth's contract, if Newcastle wanted to terminate Dan Ashworth's contract, it would cost them £4 million. Manchester United have offered them that, basically just as a way out to say, well, you don't have to pay it, we'll pay it for you. But that's all we're prepared to pay. And
Yeah.
Newcastle have turned around and said, we
Said
don't
no.
wish that. You're taking the director of football off of us and one of our leading members of our team. We want £15 million for him. And Manchester United aren't budging in that case. And it's a smart decision. In terms of directors, you can't, and directors of football, you can't really jump shit because it's such an important role in a football club. If you believe that one person's perfect for your club, you'll wait however long it takes to get them, and not so much pay whatever it takes, but you'll wait as long as it takes to get that person in, because in the long run, it'll work out a lot better for you when you have that person, rather than maybe in the short term, you might just have to front up for it. And like I say, I think it's not so much that it's going to impact things going forward. I think the recruitment will probably still be the same philosophy. They're going to buy players to play into that style of play that they want, irrespective of the manager. I think that's just the way that it's going to be. They're going to buy players based upon analytics and based upon data. And then when they eventually decide on who they want to keep as the manager or not, for example, if it is Erik that they keep or they get a new manager in, they will go to the manager directly or the coach and say, right, you said you wanted a centre back. Here's 3 players. One costs 15 million, one costs 30, the other costs 45. We can't guarantee that we'll get any of them, any of the 3, but which one would you prefer out of all of them to work with? And that's your options. There's no, suggestions, or there's no control. It's almost force 3 players on him and pick one. If you want a centre back that badly, they're the 3 players that we can afford. They're the 3 players that we'll target, and it'll be obviously of different age brackets and experience and quality. Maybe that you have the perfect player for 45 million, but you have maybe the unknown player who you have to develop or qualify with, who's maybe 19 years old for 15 million. And that's the way that INEOS are looking at it, where we give a manager options, but we don't give them the final decision. And that's almost really, I think, where Man United have gone wrong in the last couple of years, where directors like Ed Woodward had full control, but they had no background in football to warrant that control. Whereas people like Jason Wilcox have a CV that he warrants having control in a football club. Dan Ashworth warrants control. The same thing with Jean-Claude Blanc. Like I said before, he's worked with big brands. He warrants control inside Manchester United. If you can do it at Juventus, and you can, when Juventus had, scandals and they had, they were in financial difficulties, it built a stadium out of nothing. That takes a lot to be able to do that. It takes a lot. And there's the exact same thing with Jason Wilcox, where City have been renowned for buying players and, almost buying success. He's built a lot of those young players up to make them as brilliant as they are, like Phil Foden, like Tosin Adeyemi, like, for example, Jadon Sancho. And he's given them almost a boost to start to their careers, where they can compete with players like Phil Foden. Phil Foden's in and out. He's not in and out of the team anymore at City. He sometimes takes Kevin De Bruyne's spot. Now, 5 years ago, that wouldn't have happened when he was a breakout player in that squad, and that's what I'm talking about. So, in terms of will it have an impact, I don't think it will have a major impact, no, because I think what they've done in the short term is they've put people in a position that they're confident in, but they're not comfortable in. And then as soon as that smooths itself out and they get everybody that they want in, it will go how to they want to, and they'll put the jigsaw pieces back in, and then everybody will be where they're comfortable and also confident in.
Fair enough, Tom. Thank you so much for that. I just see from Zoltang. Big up Zoltang and the others that listen in chat. Remember, if you are new, big up everyone who's watching. I think 30 plus or so people watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And that. So yeah, I see a super chat. Big up something super. Put someone to comments in the chat. RDS. Yep, I'll come back to him. So I think the first thing you said is so. And this is good to you, Tom, as well. RDS is De Zerbi. Someone triggered his buyout with Brighton. So why haven't De Zerbi been announced with a club? Why would De Zerbi leave Brighton to sit down, Barada walk, etc., or like De Zerbi? Do you have any thoughts about that, Tom? I mean, that is a theory. Why would he just leave? There's been rumors he's contacted with some other club. Do you think that United were the ones that, sounded off to De Zerbi, like almost like, before the end of the season, if they wanted him to be their man, and then obviously the FA Cup kind of maybe maybe change that? I mean, I don't know. Is there any truth to that theory, do you think?
I think with the way that INEOS have moved in terms of hiring and firing directors, they've been very under the radar about it. Like when Richard Arnold announced his resignation, it was expected that he was going to resign, but I don't think people expected him to go that quickly. John Murtough was exactly the same thing. You didn't know whether he might stay on until they get Dan Ashworth in. No, we're going to get rid of him anyway, regardless. And I think with even Berardi, nobody expected Man United to go and pip one of City's top generals in their football club and be able to turn him and convince him. To convince him to go to another football club is one thing, but to convince him to go to the rival over the City that he's been competing with for the last 10 years, you know, it proves something. They've got something cooked up that they can project to people that brings them on side. I mean, Jason Wilcox, when the rumours were coming out about him potentially coming and having a role at Manchester United, nobody really knew Jason Wilcox's work in football anyway, unless you're very deep rooted in terms of Premier League football clubs like myself. And I know his CV, I know his background, and I know what he's done, and you know what his strengths are, and maybe where he's best fit in a football club. And I've, like I said, I've been through that before. And look, in terms of De Zerbi, the Brighton thing was a bit different because the way that Brighton are structured is they run on data, analytics, and spreadsheets. And De Zerbi, he fit that bill to a certain extent because of his coaching qualities, but he wants more than a coaching role in a football club, De Zerbi. He's a football enthusiast. He wants to have his hands on the purse strings of a football club and direct the club and say, I want XYZ player because I need them so that I can play this way or that way. So I can use him in, you know, an inverted wing-back role or use him as a box-to-box midfielder. He will demand a certain level of control in a football club. And that's the one thing in particular as well, when De Zerbi left Brighton, there was a lot of rumours of him going back to Italy and going to AC Milan. He didn't end up going in the end because of the way the way Milan is structured. You had the exact same thing with Brighton, which he's just fallen out with completely. So then he's ended up leaving a club that is set up and structured. Brighton, in many cases, how Manchester United want to be run. They want a coach to come in, coach the players, and run. And INEOS want the club to run on data, analytics, spreadsheets, and effectively put 3 players towards a coach and say, pick out them 3. I'm not interested in any other discussions, in any other players. It's them 3 or it's nobody. It's as simple as that. That's almost how they want. And I think De Zerbi is a character. He's a character, and if he's gonna get 3 players pushed in front of him, and none of them players really hits him with a, yeah, that fits what I want, I think he's going to blow up about it. And that's where I think there's going to be difficulties at Manchester United when there is that clash, to think, well, if there is that clash, how are we going to dictate and control that? De Zerbi, for me, I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's an enthusiast of football. Listen, I think he's one on the up. I really do. That's the one thing that I will say about De Zerbi, in my personal opinion anyway. I think he believes in his own hype. I think he values himself very highly in stock. And I think he believes that he's going to the top of football. And I think he will get to the top of football, and he will get a big job in football. But it's about timing for a bit of De Zerbi. And the way that I look at how he left Brighton, I don't think he'll be best pleased because it won't give him a good reputation as a manager or as a coach. But it will give him his stock will have risen based upon the success he's had at that football club under the circumstances of where Brighton are as a club. I mean, Jesus Christ, he got them all the way to Rome. That's an achievement in itself. When a manager can take you from the seaside to Rome, that's an achievement in many cases. But I understand what Zoeteng's saying about his bio and everything, but I haven't got a clue about what football club it is. And look, if it is Manchester United, you know what, INEOS have, it wouldn't surprise me based upon the way that INEOS have run with the directors that they've appointed. It's been very quiet, very silent. Same thing with this Erik Ten Hag decision. Very quiet, very silent. We're not opening up and saying what's what or anything. We're just leaving it on the slide and on the low. And then it'll probably all come out like a can of worms.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think there was another comment from Zoe telling me wanted to. Oh yeah. If INEOS like Ten Hag, why haven't they announced him as the manager until the end of this contract? Until the end of the contract, which is I think next year, isn't it? Me just saying Tuchel, Poch, Southgate, but very quiet on Zerbi. It's clearly Zerbi. So I think so. As in your point is that because INEOS and Ten Hag, it's not been decided. You think they would have told the media already, and the fact that they're very quiet on Zerbi, but are talking a lot about Southgate, Poch, and Tuchel, that maybe this is part of INEOS's plan. I mean, I don't know what's your, whether you share the same theory, Tom.
Yeah, to be fair with INEOS, I kind of can sympathise with them because I think when you look at the managerial market, you know, you could say out there the top, I would say 3 managers are locked in. You're not getting any 3 of them, and the top 3 managers in the world right now are Pep. You're not going to get him from City. Carlo Ancelotti, you're not going to get him from Real Madrid. And Jurgen Klopp's just had a layover. He's wanting a layover and a sabbatical for a couple of years. And then he might come back to football, but he's never guaranteed that he's going to come back. Those 3 managers, you're not going to get anytime soon. Not for, I would say, at least 18 months, 2 years. And you can't, INEOS, they can't wait 18 months and 2 years to get one of those 3. So the best thing that you can do is you can look at the market and say, well, who's proven in football? And out of the names that Zoeting's put up there, who's proven that they can coach at the elite level and win things? Out of all 4 of those names that he's put up there, Thomas Tuchel fits the bill in terms of he can win the big trophies because he's done it and he's achieved it. Who's a manager that's maybe done brilliant with young players but didn't win anything at that point? You would say Pochettino. Who's maybe a guy who has been given a big opportunity to manage England, but he's got a golden generation of young players there who really should have won a tournament, and he hasn't won a tournament with them in Gareth Southgate. What are you going to say about his credentials? And I've said there about my own personal opinion with Zerbi. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's on the up. He's one of those projection managers where I think he is going to go up on the up. He deserves a top football club. He deserves a top job based upon what he's done with minimal resources and not amateur players, but, you know, Pascal Gross and Solly Marsh and Lewis Dunk, no disrespect. 3 or 4 years ago, you would have labelled them as championship players. He took championship players to Rome, like I've just said about. And he tried to play his style and his football. You can only get so far with those players until you need better. That's the thing that I'm saying. So in terms of INEOS going through it, I sympathise with them because I don't think there's a perfect option out there that you can go and get because there's not a top manager that's realistically available out of those top 3 that I just said. So if you can't get those top 3, well, you're going to have to take a gamble on somebody if you do make a change. And the only thing that I will say that I think INEOS are going to look at is if we put Erik Ten Hag out there on the open market, and let's say he didn't come to Manchester United, would he be a manager that you would probably say would be linked to this job? And I think you would probably say, yeah, he'd be on that list. If he's on the list with the same names that are on you know, being rumoured out there like Tuchel, Poch and Southgate, well, he's almost the same as them because we would be looking at that sort of similar level of manager. So is it better that we stick with him or we don't, effectively? That's the way that they're probably going to look at it.
No, I don't disagree with you there. I don't disagree with you there. Again, thanks everyone for watching. I think we've got about 30, 40 plus people watching. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe if you're new, follow us on Twitter and Twitch as well. And obviously it's Friday, so if you want to just keep your questions coming in as we kind of pivot a little bit. But I'll just quickly read your comments and we'll probably just pivot a little bit to just transfer news regarding players linked to Manchester United. So I'll just quick. So I think Xavier says, why have we not started buying? Why? I don't think the transfer window is open yet. So that might be a potential reason, but I guess we should at least be starting to negotiate with agents. That would be nice. Let's have a look. And Xavier again says, if we keep Ten Hag, we need to buy him 6 players, 2 defenders, 2 midfielders, 1 winger, and a striker. Well, if we have the money. There's a lot of Erik Ten Hags in, which I guess was demonstrated by the poll that we had on the last stream. Let's have a look. Big up Eddie actually as well, who says, "Good evening, Red and Tom. Curious to see what Ten Hag is actually trying to cook now. Give him the extra year then. I'm hitting the like. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Big up the chat. Hey, Lanks, yeah, come on, keep on. We got about, I think, 30 people. Let's at least get to 30 likes, guys. Come on. Doesn't cost you anything. 30 likes, really doesn't cost you anything at all. So I'd appreciate if you just hit that like button and subscribe. It means a lot. We had Qatar, and then shakes him. Well, that's past. It's past. It's past. If Erik Ten Hag does go, I agree with Tom on Tuchel. Fair enough. So if we just pivot just a little bit, and go on to sort of your latest player transfer news, Tom. What's been the latest that you've heard regarding obviously like player transfers or links at Manchester United, even though obviously the window's not open?
Well, in terms of some of the players, anyway, Man United have looked at buying they want a left back. They would ideally want to sign a right-sided centre back to replace the outgoing Rafael Varane. A midfielder would be ideal based upon that they've been strung up with injuries, and it is looking inevitable that Casemiro will probably move on if they get the sort of money that they're after to offload him. And again, they would probably ideally want an attacking player, whatever that fold might be. I think they might look more towards either a striker or a right-sided player, based upon that they've got enough players in this club that can play on the left-hand side. Rashford can play there. Ahmad can play out there. Anthony, you've seen, can play in the left wing position. Garnacho can play there. If Sancho comes back, he can play there. There's players who can play on the left-hand side, no problem. He's stacked up to that. But when you maybe reverse that and you say, well, who can play on the right-hand side? Garnacho can play there, but he's not as effective. But Ahmad's really the only one that you can say is maybe made that position his own toward the end of the season. Anthony, you can see what you're getting with Anthony, and it's not great. And he's had his time. He's had 2 years now, and you've not really seen much change or much happen for him. So I can maybe look at that and think, well, a right-sided player suits, but also you've lost Martial. You've had Højlund nearly for the whole of this season. So if you need anything to say that you've had a bit of a trial for this season, to say why you need to buy a number 9, another one, that's all that you need to see, because you've not got brilliant options up there. And Højlund, to his credit anyway, he's had his injuries, he's had his fitness issues, he's been in and out of a team really. When he got into a bit of a goal rushing form, I think he scored like 4 or 5 games consistently. I mean, he blew a hamstring, and then as soon as that went, he's then got to try and come back and recover from that. And the team wasn't playing well; it was underperforming, and there wasn't necessarily players around him that could help him. And there was a bit of a problem there with the phase and that. But like I say, I think the way that INEOS are looking at it, they want ideally an attacker. They want to play for really every position. They want a left back, a centre back, a midfielder, and an attacking player. They want to try and improve the spine of the team consistently all the way through. A centre half, a midfielder, and then an attacking player. And then they want a new left back based upon that they've had no player fully fit this season, pretty much. Malassia's not been here, and Luke Shaw's not been here, and there's been bad decision making maybe with what happened with sending Reguilon back to Spurs to then go on loan at Brentford. But listen, it happened. Decisions are made. You can't go back once you've made them. And I'm sure whoever made that decision internally at Manchester United, and as far as I'm aware at the time, it was John Murtaugh when it was Richard Arnold's decision, from a financial and a football perspective, that they thought, based upon the medical analytics sheets that they had, that Luke Shaw was, when he come back from the injury that he had, he was going to be back for the rest of the season. So by that calculation, they've then sent Reguilon back, and they're massively underfired. It's a blowout. It's a blowout, and it's a blow mark. And maybe INEOS might have looked at that to say, well, that's a coffin to. That's a question. Maybe it's a throw to John Murtough and Richard Arnold to say why they're incompetent and why they can't work at this football club. Because it's something like that that decides in this league whether you win a league title or you don't. Because it's not just so much about the players on the field making the right decisions. The people off the pitch, the directors, the ownership have to make the right decisions so that it impacts the team to be able to win. And when you don't have a starting left back, listen, if Pep didn't have a starting left back at City, he'd struggle. If Klopp didn't have a starting left back at Liverpool, he'd struggle. Coaches will struggle without key players. And if there's nobody who can come in and replace that player, well, then you're even going to struggle even more. So they've limped over the line for the season without a left back miraculously, but it's been a car crash, put it that way. And INEOS understand that, Ten Hag understands that, the players understand that, but they're going to go again next season.
Fair enough. Thank you for that, Tom. Just reading out comments again. We need a starting left back, and I know we both agree on this. We should have kept. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest mistakes, to be honest. So Amrabat, from what I see is, I mean, he had a good last couple of games, but like I've not seen anything from Amrabat that I'll be honest that I didn't see from Fred. So with maybe a few exceptions of a few games, so. But whether United obviously go and get Amrabat on is another story, because if you let Amrabat go, then suddenly you're still in a situation where United need to get another midfielder, because you're left with Mainu, Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro, and I think that's it, well, unless I'm missing anything. And you're wanting to let Casemiro go, so, and obviously if Amrabat goes, so at the very least, you need either a very, very fit midfielder or at least two midfielders to come in the window if you're going to let Casemiro and Amrabat go. It's as simple as that, really. If United can't do that, then we're in problems, I'd say. So just obviously staying on the point of players, and like, do you know any specific players that United? Obviously, there'll be Couching, there'll be Skoching, etc. But do you know any specific United players that United are actively trying to work on by any chance, Tom?
There's a couple of players that they've had contacts with, the clubs and the agents of the players. I'd say the biggest one that they've had most contact with is probably Michael Olise's camp. They've always liked Olise as a player. They have had a question mark over his injury record, but with the injury concerns that they've had for this season, INEOS look at it and think, well, if we can rectify what we've gone through this season with the amount of blowouts, burnout, injuries of players, bringing a player like Olise in isn't going to negatively impact that, because if we find a solution to cure a lot of players from injuries, whether that be they've had too much intensity in training or they've not been, having the right recovery plans or whatever it is, when they get to the bottom of it, players like Olise, if you bring them to Man United, will be key, because he will be an output player. He will be a player that you will expect him to get 10 G and 10 A's in a season. You expect him to get 20 plus figures for GAs. And in the way that the team have performed this season, especially in the attacking output of the team, the goal difference speaks for itself. When United, finishing negative goal difference and things like that towards the back end of a season, it should never happen. That's never happened in the history of Manchester United, that they can't get over the line with maybe 10 plus goal difference. But minuses is ludicrous as to why that should happen. So if they get over the root of that, players like Olise is very sought after. But he's very sought after, and I said when we discussed it last stream as well with Olise, he's a player that Chelsea very much like. He's a player that Manchester City could have signed and nearly signed last summer, and they ended up going for Doku instead. But with the way that his contract is structured, it's very complex with Crystal Palace. They want a £50+ million fee they want a £6 million add-on structure, regardless. And if they get that and you meet those demands, you can buy Michael Olise. It's as simple as that. And so long as he's prepared to come to you and he'll agree a contract with your football club, he'll come. And that's it. And you've got the player. Olise, like I say, he's a very flexible player. He's got, to be fair, what I've heard about him anyway, he's got a good family around him. His mum and dad, anyway, in terms of the way that they've guided his playing career up to now, and the way that his agent works on his behalf as well. He's got a good relationship with the CEO at Crystal Palace and Steve Parish. So there is an understanding there that Olise will want to go to the next stage and the next level. But even if Palace don't get the sort of money that they're after for him, it's not going to cripple them. They don't need to sell players because of PSR. They don't necessarily need. They're in a very good position, Palace, because they can demand high fees. They don't need money. They've got a coach who's coming, who's regalvanised the team and the way that they're playing. The players have clearly bought into it. Olise has been a massive, creditor to that, based upon he's adapted to the way the coach wants him to play. And if you get the Olise that's played for under Glasner for, I would say, the last 3-4 weeks of the season to come to Manchester United, it's a key player. And the way that I can describe the Olise one is that it's very much similar to what I think a lot of clubs did 6 years ago when Sadio Mane was on the market at Southampton. He was the best player in the team. He was a standout player in the Premier League. When he was fit, and Sadio Mane, to his credit anyway, he had a couple of fitness issues at Southampton. Liverpool took a risk on him. They paid a decent chunk of money in that time scale of football for him, and he turned out to be one of the best players that's played in arguably the Premier League, but also in that Liverpool team. He was a massive asset to them. And I think Olise, for the money that you're going to pay for him, it's a big gamble. But when Chelsea have paid over £100 million for a player from the Ukrainian league, they're prepared. They're a club that will take gambles on players. Manchester City don't rarely miss when they get a player. When they want a player and they believe the player's good enough, they will do whatever they can to go and get that player, regardless of the fees. Gvardiol last year should tell you that. He's a player that they didn't want to miss out on, because if they didn't get him, Liverpool wanted centre-backs, Manchester United wanted centre-backs, Chelsea wanted centre-backs. There was a lot of clubs in Europe as well. Juventus wanted centre-halves, Barca did. There was clubs that wanted defenders last summer. This summer, like I say, with players like Olise, he's an open book. And whoever gives him... The thing with Olise, from what I understand with his sort of background and the people that are around him, he's not a kid that's motivated by money, because he understands that if he's a brilliant player himself. He understands that himself. But if he's going to be twice the player that he thinks he will be later on in his career, he'll believe that he'll earn multi-millions in contracts and in agency contracts and player performances in terms of what he'd get in his contracts. He believes that he will be a top player, so he's not motivated by money. He enjoys playing football at the level that he's at right now, and he's prepared to take that step up. And in terms of a character coming into Manchester United, that's the exact player that you want. Somebody who's not motivated by money, who's clearly there for a reason because they want to progress their career and wants to go somewhere. But players like Olise won't come to Man United until they know who's the manager. That's the problem. Because he's not going to take... As much as the club will take a gamble on him, he's not going to take a gamble on the club if he doesn't know who's walking through the door. That's the problem. So, again, when it comes down to the recruitment situation, they will give a new manager 3 players. Olise might be top of the bill to say he's the £50 million player. Your next player might be somebody from, out of Europe. You might, have a wide player who...
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Just to adjust what Yasser just said. Yasser, we actually discussed this probably in the first 20 minutes of the stream. So if you want to go back, but the gist of it is, in summary, we should hear something next week all the likelihood is that Ten Hag looks like he probably is going to be sacked. But yeah, but that we should hear something next week. Is basically the summary. So yeah. I don't know. So do you want to add anything to that, Tom? But if I summarize that, okay.
No, you summarize that fine.
Appreciate it. Right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Finish your point, Tom. Sorry.
No. Like I said, with players like Olise, it's the sort of player that Man United should be signing. They should have signed years ago, 10 years ago, when Ferguson left. That's the sort of players that you want to come to your club. Not motivated by money. They believe they're going to be a top player later on in their career, so they've got time to earn multi-millions and be a success and be a superstar. That's the players that you want to come to Man United. And the exact same case for it when they sign the left back. Again, there'll be three options. There'll be an option that might be, 60, 70 million, which might be, so for example, someone like Alphonso Davies, Theo Hernandez might be a top player who's a ready-made player to come in. Mm-hmm. Then you might have a player for 30 million from Ligue 1. Then you might have a £10 million player from, South America, from Boca Juniors or, from, Corinthians in Brazil. You'll have different ratings of players, and it depends on what the manager who's in place believes he needs most. Does he need a number one starting left back better or more for the way that he's going to coach this team to play, that the ownership want him to? Is that more vital to him? Is a centre back more vital to him? Is an attacker more vital to him? Is a midfielder more vital to him? And that's where the manager then will have his own control and his own decision making. And that's why INEOS believe this way of running the football club is going to be a success, because you still give the manager an element of decision making, because he decides what player you're going to target, but you give him options. He decides what he believes is best. You tell him what's financially attainable for the club. And then if you can get the player, you'll get the player. If you don't get the player, for whatever reason, he goes somewhere else, and then you go back to the drawing board. Right, you've got the other two players here. Or give us a suggestion. And then they might be open to players that their manager will want. So, effectively, it's giving a manager control, but it's almost letting him focus on what he's there to do, which is coach the team. His job is to get 3 points on a Saturday and a Sunday, and a Tuesday night maybe in Europe. That's his job. His job's not to run a recruitment team and sign players. That's how football's changed. Years ago, you had Ferguson pull up in a car park in Nottingham and sign players like Roy Keane. That doesn't happen in football now. So that's the way that football has evolved, and it's changed over years. And like I was saying before about players like Olise, Tadebo's a player that we've been linked with massively in terms of going and getting as a centre half. And as far as from what I heard from a couple of reports a couple of days ago, with Tadebo, he would be on the cheap. Nice don't necessarily need money. There is a little bit of a blow up that's happened today with regards to INEOS that we'll get onto in terms of Nice, that I'm sure we'll discuss regarding the situation of the future, their ownership there. But in terms of the short term right now, Nice, arguably, I think, have got two players that can improve, that are better in this United team than some of the players that are here. I think Thuram's a massive upgrade in midfield on McTominay. Casemiro maybe in the short term, because Casemiro is probably going to go out the door. If you don't keep Amrabat, I don't think he's a bad player to bring in. I think he's got the physical attributes to play in this league. He's tall. He can control the ball. He's got a decent pass in him. I think at centre half as well, Tadebo, he's got the physical presence to play in the Premier League. He's got leadership capabilities. He's got quality. And what I talk about with character, the big thing that Man United need this summer, irrespective of superstars, talent, you need characters, you need personalities. And the one thing that you can say what Ange did when he went to Tottenham, for example, was when that club was in the complete shit in the summer, when Harry Kane left, every Spurs fan was thinking, how are we going to survive? What they did is they went out there, they bought a couple of characters. A doggy is a wildfire cannon player. He'll 2-foot people. He'll rile players up. He'll get a yellow card for no reason. He's a character. Mickey van der Ven. Nobody even knew who Mickey van der Ven was when he come from Wolfsburg. But as a character, he's a top player. He's a Rolls Royce defender, and that's what they needed. That's what the team needed. That's what I'm talking about, though, guys. Is that United need characters, irrespective of quality, and in particular, like I say, with players like they're looking at with Olise, Todibo, Thuram, they're the right sort of players that they need to look at, but they need to try and get these fees for those players that I've just mentioned there as low as possible, where it makes sense for them, but it also makes sense for the selling club to sell to them. I mean, convincing Todibo and Thuram to come, I don't think it's going to be that difficult. You're under the same ownership structure, so the way that Nice are run is the way that effectively Manchester United will be run in the long term. So they understand the way that the clubs are run. It will just be a simple jump from one club to another. And Olise, for example, he understands what a club like Manchester United's expectations are. He's a kid. He's come up in this league. He's been born around, superstars, big football clubs. He's been born around all of that. So going to the next level, he'll understand the expectation of what it means to play for Manchester United. And that's what I'm talking about with some of these players. The character and the expectation. So some of these players is there and it will be ready. It's just a case of, can you get those players ahead of other clubs? And second of all, can you get it for a price that means that you can still impact other areas of the team?
That's fair. Thanks, Tom, man. Appreciate it. And I think as we just begin to round things up, you obviously reminded me of a point I actually can discuss. Sorry, I'm apologies. I'm off camera. For some reason I've got a bit of a cold developing right now, so I apologize. So you won't see me coughing and with nose and stuff like that. So, but yeah, this area about the idea that we got some obviously news earlier about the fact that there's rumors that INEOS are wanting to sell Nice. Obviously the other club. So I guess my questions are, as we just begin to round things up, Tom, is that, how true are these rumors regarding the sale of Nice, and more importantly, what effect will this obviously have on Manchester United as a whole as well? Like, what's basically been going on here?
Yeah, well, when we was doing streams regarding the sort of ownership saga that was going on regarding the bidders to buy Manchester United, one of the things that we always come to was how INEOS are going to play the cards to UEFA to say that Man United and Nice can play in the same competition. Now, they've been given verbal agreement. They've been given a verbal agreement by UEFA pending a written contractual agreement to state that Nice and Manchester United can play in the same European competition. They both can play in the Europa League. And based upon that, it's only a short-term solution for INEOS. UEFA are giving them 12 months to sort out what they want to do, whether they want to contest the rules, like some clubs have done in the past, like Red Bull have contested the rules, so that Salzburg and Leipzig can play in the same competition if they get drawn against each other. So they've contested it's been contested about the ruling before, but they've never changed the rules per se to let the same ownership group own two football clubs in the same UEFA competition. So they're giving INEOS the leeway to almost give them a bit of time to say, what are you going to do, guys? Are you going to dismantle Nice down to the point where they aren't a club to challenge for Europe and their fans are not going to take too kindly to that? You can't do that to Manchester United because the prestige and the legacy of the club, they would be turfed out of there if they came up with a master plan to say that, Manchester United aren't going to be a European powerhouse anymore. We're just going to be a stabilised Premier League club. That can never happen. They can never come out and use that language or say those sort of things. Not with the way that the club is. And as much as people want to say it for what it is, so Jim Ratcliffe in himself has said and confessed himself, he is a boyhood Manchester United fan. He is a lifelong Manchester United fan. And I think the way that you can look at it and gauge from what they've done in the short term, he's been at as many games as he can possible. He's been present at Old Trafford. He's been present at Wembley. Jesus Christ, the guy ran a marathon on the same day that Man United played Coventry, and he still made it for the second half. That's the guy who's is dedicated to at least see his success or see what he's bought and what he's trying to build.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, with what they've done with Nice now, they've come to the point now, INEOS with Nice, where they want a full focus program on Manchester United.
Okay.
That's regarding Ratcliffe. He wants to fully focus on Manchester United. If he sells Nice, I think there's two things that can go well in this case. Is he's selling Nice because he wants to comply with UEFA's rules.
Okay.
He will get a massive return upon his investment. I think he only bought Nice for €100 million off of a Chinese investor. Oh God, it would have been about 5-6 years ago, maybe. That they bought Nice. It's in a very good location, Nice, south of France. They've got a new stadium in place. It's a good club for for an ownership group that want to maybe come in, invest in a team, and maybe take them to challenge PSG, to challenge Marseille, to challenge Lyon, to make a statement in that league. But it's not going to be INEOS that are prepared to do that because they've bought in bigger. That's the thing with INEOS. They've bought into something that's a lot bigger than what the expectation is at Nice. And you can't run Nice and Manchester United both successfully without having one of them fail. City is a different complexity because they have branches of clubs, but those clubs are run by completely different entities, but they work for the same organisation. That's the way that the City Football Group is so successful. The difference with Manchester United and Nice is it's the same ownership group. The employees and the directors that's on the Nice board are on the Manchester United board. Right. They can't run two football clubs. Whereas the City Football Group, the board that's at Manchester City and the board that's at, let's say, Girona, is different board members. So they're not running multiple clubs. They're running one club with the same goal, which is for the City Football Group. That's the difference. So with Nice, if they do sell, with INEOS, if they do end up selling Nice, which the understanding is that Ratcliffe is open to a sale, based upon that he can comply with UEFA's rules, I think also in hand, for what people were saying about with the future of potentially buying the rest of the Glazer family out, in the long term, that would ideally work out for him, because if he gets a good deal for Nice, I don't think he'd get anything near $1 billion, but to say he bought the club for 100 million, it's a decent, stabilised club. They're in and around the Champions League places in France. They've got a new stadium already built, so there's not a lot of work, like infrastructure work, that needs to go into the club. I think he might get a decent return. He might get 500 million off somebody, or 400, in and around that sort of ballpark figure. If he gets anywhere near those numbers that I'm saying about, that's a perfect pledge where he can buy more of the club. He can use 500 million there to buy more shares from the Glazer family and say, well, I've sold Nice. We can comply with UEFA. So there's no conflict of interest. We can have full focus on Manchester United. So every employee from Nice, so Sir Dave, Jean-Claude Blanc, everybody will now work for Manchester United. And that will only go in favour of Manchester United, because those people, I'd say more so in terms of Jean-Claude Blanc, is qualified to work in football. So Dave is a performance guy. He's a person who's good for a review, assess where things maybe have gone wrong performance-wise, the medical team, scientifically about football as a whole. He's perfect for that side of the game. But in terms of decision-making and actually maybe, running a club, he's going to struggle with, because it's not his background. And that's what I'm talking about before, about putting people in positions that they're suitable with and they're comfortable with. But with Nice, Sir Jim's open to a sale, but whether it comes of it, if he gets what he wants and Nice do end up going up for a sale, he wants a massive return on his investment. And then if he gets what he wants, in the end, full focus will be towards Manchester United.
Big up David T in the chat says, I don't care. I never liked INEOS. I'm trying to be balanced my opinions, um, but they make it difficult to back this. I mean, like I said, my balancing is simply fair. Is that I'm neither here nor there. I want to just wait and see basically what happens before I judge. I've been getting a lot of criticism from people who seem to sort of. It's weird. Like last season, when we won the Carabao, we finished. I think it was the second or sorry third. But with the manner which happened, I was very critical of Ten Hag and the team, the structure, and I was told that I was too harsh and all the rest of it, etc. Now this season, even though the circumstances have changed, I can understand uh, Ten Hag and the injuries and also the trying to figure out different managers. But I'm being told I'm a Ten Hag supporter, so I don't know. I'm very much just like I don't believe in extremes, and I'd rather just see. I want to see the evidence first, if that makes any sense. So I appreciate all the structure, and all the different, appointments, etc. But I mean, Chelsea, to a certain extent, I would argue, have more structure in their club than they did of Abramovich. But at the end of the day, they've made the wrong appointments, and they're now on their fifth or sixth manager since they took over the club. So I'm still waiting to see. Uh, as far as I'm concerned, so far, even though the transfer window isn't open yet, things still seem like they were with the Glaze under full control. Hopefully that changes because of the expert's opinion, the players that we get, the philosophy, etc. Hopefully that changes. But the proof is in the pudding, as people say. So I'm not going to overreact until I basically see fruit of what it is that the INEOS are preparing to deliver, and that hopefully translates on the pitch. So that's my kind of my take really, because this club has burnt, I think, a lot of people out and has often given a lot of promises, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so I'm very very skeptical in general, and with United or anything United related, until I see actual evidence. So, but yeah, big up David T for the chat. And I mean, yeah, it is that Maraska will be sacked within 4 to 5 months. I mean, bro, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised. I'd not be surprised. I don't think he's a bad coach, but the manner which Chelsea went around that, I know they've got the data and the statistics about it, but I don't know. I think it's a massive risk. Daisy says, "I'm with you. I don't want to get with the manager, but as long as we get good players that fit into managers, I'm happy with the managers." Of course, yeah, exactly. That's me. Like, I mean, I'm always happy with the, but like I said, I don't necessarily think that having a structure necessarily means that you're going to make the right. I mean, even with Liverpool, Liverpool just got really lucky and made the right managerial decision in Jurgen Klopp, and obviously got the right DOF position. I've forgotten his name, but he's just come back to Liverpool, and they
Michael
all
Edwards.
Michael Edwards, yeah, and they all kind of at the right place, the right time. They managed to get the players that they require, and they bought together. So if it all clicks and it works, and that's fine. But that doesn't happen, and you're looking across all of Europe right now, and quite frankly, aside from Madrid, uh, Manchester City, although obviously they've got the whole charge and things and stuff around hanging on them. There are a lot of clubs that, despite having the structure and stuff, are not run particularly well, or they've made terrible appointments. You look at PSG, you look at even Bayern Munich now, you look at Juventus and a lot of the Italian clubs, obviously United, etc. So it's very, if anything, you're more often seeing clubs that, I was speaking to someone else and said, who do you think is a favourite for the Champions League next season? And obviously everyone say Real Madrid and City, and that's about it. Maybe some people might say Bayern Munich, but with a Benson company manager, probably not. So really, that just shows you just where a lot of big top clubs are when it comes to their structure and management appointments, etc. So these are the things. So but as we round up, Tom, so just to sort of double back, just final thoughts on the Ineos's plans, more from like the stadium and kind of future kind of plans around um you know what they have for the stadium and the areas and structure and stuff like that aren't necessarily related to the team.
Yeah, in terms of the infrastructure side of it, in terms of a stadium rebuild and the integration to the local area, the way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has almost pitched it is that he effectively wants to build a new world-class stadium beside Old Trafford on the same plot of land. He wants the local council in Salford to give him the approval to do so, which he's got. He's got the approval if he wishes to build a new stadium. He wants to re-energise the local area for the history and the legacy of what it gave to working class people, the Industrial Revolution for people maybe a bit more old school, for maybe younger viewers who might not know what that is, maybe do a little bit of research on that area of Manchester where Old Trafford is set near Stretford, and you'll understand where I'm coming from with that. And beside the point, they want to build fan zones, they want to have a community, they almost want it to be a day experience at Manchester United where there's a fan zone, you can go for a pint, you can go for a soft drink, get a bite to eat, go to the stadium, watch the match, then come back, socialise, go to go to the fan parks or, the club shop, wherever it is, to almost keep, they want to keep fans longer and engaged more with their football club than they have been for the past 20 years, really, since Old Trafford has been what it has been, which has just been a sitting statue. That's all it's been. It's just been decayed over years. There's no improvements. There's no, delay in terms of it. So they want to do that, and they want to improve the facilities for the players as well. One of the things that I know for sure that they're doing throughout the summer now, currently is taking place at Carrington, is that they're having a complete remodelling of the building internally.
Okay.
The training pitches are going to be replastered and smoothed over. It's going to be complete new grass that they're going to use from scratch. They're going to build new. They put the blueprints in front of INEOS to say if they want to build a new car park. So the rumours that we had before about that they was looking at buying a golf course to build a complex for the men's team. It's something that could still happen because they can still modernise they can still modernise Carrington to an extent that it can be facilitated for the youth team and also the women's team, and then they can just move the men's team facility somewhere else. So exactly at that point, they've got a plan. That's the thing that I think a lot of people are maybe grabbing onto, is that INEOS are at least doing things differently to what the Glazers have done, where they didn't make improvements. They never put plans forward. They didn't even have local contacts at Salford Council to say, can we have approval for this, that? They wouldn't know where to start with in terms of building a new stadium, whereas INEOS, in terms of the revolution that they've had as a company and as a brand, really. Listen, these guys build gas and oil facilities all the way around the world. So building a football stadium, they've got the resources and they've got the infrastructure back in to build a stadium tomorrow. That's not a problem for them. If they want to build something, they can build it tomorrow. It's as simple as that. They've got the plan in place. They've got the local politicians in place, such as Andy Burnham's pledged that there is potentially going to be taxpayer funding going towards a regeneration of that side of Manchester. The difference that I think rival fans are looking at and thinking, where the wires are getting crossed really in the media when they use the words that he wants to use taxpayers' money to build a new stadium. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is he wants to build a new stadium out of his own pocket, effectively, and there will be debt constraints and he will borrow money to go towards it, as you will do with any business. It's easier to borrow somebody else's money and build something than use your own and it go tits up and you've lost out on a lot. So the best way that Ratcliffe's looking at it is he can structure it so that he and INEOS build the stadium up, and he wants to effectively use taxpayers' money, which is a legal right to do so in councils and cities in the UK, to then modernise the rest of Manchester, or that side of Manchester anyway. The thing that INEOS want to do in particular is they look at the city complex and they say, we want to do that, but we want to do that times two. We want a big stadium, we want a massive fan zone, we want bars, we want restaurants, we want the full shebang entertainment facility. We want the best performance centre in the world for the players, the team, the staff. We don't want anybody working from home. We want a new working culture. You're in the offices, the work banter's there. You have the connections with your colleagues. You have almost an oiled club. The thing that City do so well is they have a workforce behind Pep Guardiola of like 300 members of staff that work for that City football, that just work for Manchester City. That 300-man staff, you see the amount of people that work for that football club when they lift a trophy, but they recognise every single one of them as having a part from that, whether you're the kit man, the dinner lady, or you're the manager in Pep Guardiola. They recognise your work. That's what INEOS want, but they only want people who want to be here to live that and actually do that. And when when the club achieves something, you'll be recognised for it. That's the difference. And at the end of the day, with the way that they've come in, they've castrated the club down. They basically said, if you don't want to be here, that's fine. Piss off. We'll pay you a bit of money to go off, and there's a bit of a compensation. If you do want to be here, we want you to work in the offices that we've resided now in Mayfair. They've moved the Manchester offices to Mayfair in London. They've also then moved. So they've got office buildings in Manchester, and also with Carrington as well, where it's a home. It's not a working from home complex. That culture at Manchester United is gone. So Jim Ratcliffe said that from the get go. Is there's no working from home. It's you come in, you work your minimum job, you get the best output and expectations of what is expected of you in your job, and you do your job to your best degree. And when you do your job to your best degree, you'll be rewarded for it. That's the way that he looks at it. And to be honest with you, that's how life is. You do your best, you do the best work that you can in your role that you're in, and then you'll get a recognition in life. It happens to people. You do so well for maybe so many years, somebody comes along in your life and thinks, you know what, I'm going to give you a bit of a break. I'm going to give you a bit of a reward, a bit of a thank you, a bit of a give back to you. And that's what people deserve. And at the end of the day, you look at people make the association with, say, caff on reception and things like that at Carrington. That lady's been through everything at this football club. Wouldn't it be a brilliant, well wish for the rest of her life for then the players suddenly to come back to Carrington the day after they win the Premier League and they put the Premier League trophy on that desk with a lady, and you have Fergie there? That's legacy. That's a football club. That's what you should have. And at the end of the day,
I'm on mute. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all, Tom. I just think the only thing I'll say is that's why, so that when you're saying all these things, it's also important that to put alongside, that an improved structure that, right, okay, we want you to go back, but we're also going to improve the facilities. We're going to, maybe whether it's the food options in the canteen, whether it's the infrastructure in the gym, the toilets, the Carrington, etc., etc. So we want you to do your role and make United the best it can be, but we are also, as leaders, going to make United structurally the best it can be as well. And it shouldn't just be talk, like old talk, but no, although I appreciate it'll take time, but that it'll be more, but that we will legitimately, as you said, create the fan parks, what's the area, engage with the fans, etc., because, again, like I said, I think I'm just very skeptical because, I know that, you see some Nice fans and they're like, I don't want to be in a situation where, we have promises that are made and that are said, etc., and then 2 or 3 years down the line, we hear about, oh yeah, but we didn't expect the profit margins. Oh yeah, it's going to take a bit longer. Oh yeah, we go this. Oh yeah, and you're just kind of like, I don't want essentially what I'm saying is I don't want I don't want us as fans to be taken advantage of again. When we're obviously been given this chance. That's basically what I'm saying. So, but like I said, I don't disagree.
Yeah, well, it's understandable when Manchester United has been ran the way that they have done in the last 2 decades, near enough, with the Glazer family. You can't sit here for years on end and think that it's been a success. It's been a fucking nightmare. It has.
No.
The stadium's not improved one bit, apart from a couple of licks of paint. Carrington, when it was built, was the best training facility in the world. Suddenly, it's not even in the top 20 in the Premier League. There's clubs that were in the Championship last season. Leicester City have a better training facility complex than Manchester United. That sums up where Manchester United are in terms of how far away they are. And like I said, with what I was saying with INEOS, that they want to recreate, they want to do the city complex and the city campus ×2. That's the way that they envisage this club. They want to build it all from scratch, modernise it, do it up, the full works, the full shebang. There's not a penny spared. And it has to be for the greater good of the football club. And at that point then, sometimes you have to say goodbye to something that's given you so much good. And Old Trafford has given everybody memories. Anybody who's been to Old Trafford will have a memory there, whether it's a goal, you saw Fergie lift the title on the last day of the season, or his last game. There'll be certain things, certain moments that people will have in that stadium that they can't outlive. The Ronaldo goal, the Rooney overhead kick. Everybody has moments. But the one thing that will never die is those moments will still live with you. But unfortunately, because of circumstances of people that live over in fucking Tampa Bay in Florida, those moments now are probably going to get taken away from you because Old Trafford is not fit for purpose. And I can't sit here and say to anybody that I'm going to convince anybody and say to everybody that, the new stadium is the way going forward, because some people are built around culture and about what that stadium is. My personal opinion as a fan, if I looked at what INEOS have said that they're going to do, if they built a new stadium next door, I'm fine with that. It's in the same location. You still walk down Sir Matt Busby's way. There's still that legacy there. You still got the same surroundings. It's the same smells, the same surroundings. It's what you've been brought up with as fans. You always walk down Sir Matt Busby way. But if they then turned Old Trafford down and they downsize it to a 20,000 capacity stadium for the women's and youth team to play on, that's where I think the better, greater good can come for it. Because that stadium on that pitch, you can say to every single young player who comes through the ranks, or any female player that comes through the ranks, to say, Mary Earps played on that pitch in 10 years' time. Brilliant female goalkeeper for Manchester United. Ella Toone played on that pitch. Cristiano Ronaldo played on this pitch. Wayne Rooney. These are your idols. These are the people that you look up to. You play on the same blades of grass that they played on 20, 30 years ago. That's a brilliant bench tool. And then when they come out of that stadium that they've just played in and they walk around the corner, there's a big dome stadium or there's a super stadium. And that's the future of Manchester United. And then you think, well, the history and the legacy is still there. The young players will still have that embodiment of this club and what it means to play for Manchester United. And you can almost use it then as a historical attraction. It won't be Old Trafford as the pictures, but it will still have the memories of the exact same spot. And you found then a new purpose for it. And the one thing that I've always voted for and empowered for at Manchester United is every Manchester United team, regardless of it's the women's team, the men's team, or the youth team, every Manchester United team should play in Manchester. And at this point in time, they don't. The women's team play in Leeds Sports Village. It's a disgrace. Leeds Sports Village is closer to Liverpool than it is Manchester. That's how much I think that's a disgrace for how Manchester women's team have been treated for many years and neglected for. So if you want to do the greater good for Manchester United, you can keep the memories and you can keep the legacy, downsize the stadium, and have it in as a new purpose for the women's team and for the youth team. And that is a benchmark for young players or young female footballers coming through the ranks at Manchester United, or young men players coming through the ranks at Manchester United. You can use that for the greater good of your football club. And that is a pitch to any young player in the world to say you can come on the same pitch that Cristiano Ronaldo played on, that Wayne Rooney played on, always great players played on. For any young coach, even in football, you're sitting in Fergie's seat. That's something that coaches will look at and think, fucking hell, I can't turn this down. I need that's one of the best opportunities you'll ever get in football. And yeah, if people want to say I'm getting a bit emotional about it and everything, that's how football makes you sometimes. And at the end of the day, if you're going to do anything with Old Trafford, it'll be a shame to see it just turn to rubble into a car park. Turn it into something that still has some meaning to it, and it can be done. You can't build Old Trafford up, but you can build it down. That's the one thing that I do know.
Fair play, Tom, and I think thanks for ending it. I think we'll end with that, man, because you're absolutely right, and I think fundamentally, whatever happens with INEOS, the Glazers at Old Trafford, we have to remember as fans that the spirit of United has to live on, and that Manchester United is more than any one individual, any one person at all. So Tom's just bit, but it's fine because we're finishing anyway. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for the show. Really appreciate it. We'll probably be back again. Obviously, if there's any news or any acute news that comes out, we'll be live. If it's regarding obviously Ten Hag's decisions or transfers, she'll be live. But we'll be trying to do these shows at least twice a week to give you obviously some the United transfer update news as well as different stuff. Of course, the Euros are starting next weekend, so I'll be doing watch long studios as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember, if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe to Red Devil Studio. Follow us on Twitter at We United X. Also we are on Twitch, TikTok, etc. Links in the description. Big up, guys. Keep on supporting the stream. Keep on supporting the channel. Have a nice day, everyone, and cheers. Peace.